So the new debate criteria has come out showing who will be eligible or how a candidate will be eligible to get into the first presidential debate. Now, of course, that's going to happen on September 26th, the day before my birthday, actually, at Hofstra University in Hempstead, New York. Now, of course, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, they're both, of course, they're going to be there. They're going to face off. But the question is whether or not Jill Stein or Gary Johnson, these third-party candidates, are going to be able to join into that debate. Now, it turns out this debate criteria means that right now they're not very likely. So let me break this down, the criteria here. Now, it says the candidates will need to hit an average of 15% in the polls conducted by ABC News, Washington Post, CBS, New York Times, CNN Opinion Research Corporation, Fox News, and NBC News Wall Street Journal. Now, as I said, that threshold of 15%, kind of high, so it's really, really difficult for a third-party candidate to get in there, and that had been established months ago. And in fact, there was a recent case brought by Gary Johnson and Jill Stein to try to lower that threshold or eliminate it outright. And it was unfortunately rejected. So Jill Stein, Gary Johnson still have to get 15% in order to make it into the debate. Now, Gary Johnson's probably the closest one, who's polling at about 9% on average. Now, however, Jill Stein, not very close. She's sitting at 5%, just under 5% as an average. Now, in Fox News, it's interesting. Fox News' recent poll, Gary Johnson got super close with about 12%. However, the poll did not include Jill Stein. And CBS did not test either candidate in the recent poll. See, the thing about that is that you have to get 15% in an average of each of these polls. Well, how are you supposed to get 15% if you're not tested in the poll? If they don't include your name, you're not going to get any percentage points. You're not going to get included in the debates. Well, that's not a good thing. I believe that all the sides should be represented in the debate. I believe the Libertarians should be represented, even though I disagree with them about 50% of the time. And the Green Party, who I'm more in line with, I think, when it comes to certain policy issues, I think that their voice is also equally as important to be represented in the debates than with Jill Stein and Gary Johnson. So I think they should all be involved. I think that setting a limit, and see, that's the problem with these, parties. These parties are private entities that have gotten together with the media in a partnership in order to do these debates. So basically, what we're asking is that these private entities allow third-party people to come into debates. Now, the thing is, they set this at 15%, which is incredibly high for a third-party candidate here in America. And would it surprise you to see that if a candidate reaches that, for example, Gary Johnson gets a bump, right, going from 9% to 16%, which would be amazing, which would be unprecedented at this point, right? But something happens, Donald Trump implodes, even more so than he is, and finally Republicans get sick of it and go, you know what, Gary Johnson, here we go. We're running third party here, right? We're running libertarians. Because, look, libertarians are far more aligned with the Republican Party, with the Republican mindset, at least when it comes to economic issues. So that would be a natural evolution. And so we see that explosion of support towards Gary Johnson. And now suddenly he's at 16. Well, since the debate commission is controlled by the two parties and the media, would it be so much of a surprise to see them bump that threshold up? Oh, you got 16%? Now we need 20%. What are you going to do? You're kind of stuck. You need that debate platform to get your views and your ideals out there. We control that platform. See, that's one of the big problems with having party-controlled debates. That's why we need more of a public forum. But as I said, back to this, right? So back to this. Now, unfortunately, this kind of means that the third party candidates, as of right now, are getting screwed. They're not going to be able to get their views out to the American public, and the public is not going to know a choice other than what's presented to us by the two parties. Hillary Clinton for the Democrats and Donald Trump for the Republican Party. Gary Johnson and Jill Stein are unfortunately left out, and this is how we unfortunately kill third parties. This is how we've kept them down, kept them out of the conversation, and that's something that really does need to change. If we're to get everyone's views represented, we need to have a more inclusive, perhaps publicly presented debate, something that's not controlled by any of the major parties. Of course, the problem with that is getting the major parties to agree to allow their candidates to go and debate with third-party candidates. But as of right now, that's where we're at. Unfortunately, I don't see the debates are a little more than a month away. Maybe we could see some, increase in polls by Gary Johnson especially and Jill Stein. But as of right now, I don't see that likely happening. And that's sad. Hey everybody, if you like this video, then please like this video and share. And if you want to see more like this, then please hit that subscribe button below.